Do it. All right.
We're
Take
here.
two.
Take two. But don't we don't have to let them know. But
Why not? It's funny.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
We just did 35 minutes of brilliant podcasting.
We have a professional show here. We don't want to let them know that sometimes things go awry. We don't want to ruin the illusion of complete professionalism we've established with this podcast. You know,
last episode, somebody commented like, "Don't they live in the same house? Just do it in the same room." And I'm like, "Did you listen to any of it? He's in Poland. I'm in Aruba. We talk about it in like the first 30 seconds." Like I'm literally in the Caribbean and you're in Central Europe.
I'm in like Auschwitz. I'm trying to get Wi-Fi from the ovens. I'm like, this gas chamber, what's the Wi-Fi signal for Auschwitz?
And the guy's like, just do it in the same room. I'm like, oh, that hadn't occurred to us.
Is there Wi-Fi at Auschwitz? Did you check? Like, is there like a signal?
I didn't look. I wasn't looking at my phone. I think you have the wrong idea of Auschwitz because you were like, last time we talked, you were like, no, did you make up jokes? Were you guys joking? And I was like, no. And then you're like, is there Wi-Fi? I'm like, I don't know. And you're like, was there any card tables? Could you play cards? Was there a pool?
I was just, by the way, I was just in Poland.
Yeah, I know.
It was, I went to.
I said that a couple seconds ago.
Yeah. Did you see my Instagram? I went back to my family roots.
No, I didn't look. I think I muted you.
I'll try to do it quickly, but I went to, my great grandfather was falsely accused of murder. I told you that, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I went back to the little shit village he's from that, like, it's like 3 hours outside of Warsaw. And I found the house my grandfather used to live in.
Wow. Was he there?
No, he's been dead for a while, but it was interesting to be in the town. I mean, this was a town that was a Jewish town. And all the Jews got killed during the Holocaust. So it's all just wiped out. I had an old map of the Jewish cemetery. So I was like, oh, this gas station is where the synagogue used to be. It was like About Schmidt, in About Schmidt where he goes to a house, it's a tire store. It was like that, but for like Jewish history. It was like this fucking, this fucking woman's kiosk is where like the Jewish cemetery is, but it was all just vanished.
That's incredible. And did you feel spiritual? Did you feel the touch of God?
I felt the touch. Well, I felt a little angry. It was just sad. Like my whole Jewish history was just kind of erased in Europe,
Yeah, I know.
And
I've been to Auschwitz.
I felt a little like they're all just forgetting it. It's all just ignored. And then I got to the house and there was like ugly little girl looking in the window at me, with a look like, what are you doing here? I'm like, bitch, that's my grandpa's house. You're in his bedroom,
So it sounds like there's still Jews there.
No. She's not. No, there's no Jews.
You said ugly.
Wow, you really are. But ugly in like a Gentile Polish way. But the craziest part was getting there because there was 3 hours. Have you been to Poland?
Yes. Gee, do you listen? Auschwitz. Right. It's unbelievable how bad at listening you are. Not just today, but like we've had extended conversations.
Maybe
unless they moved Auschwitz.
Oh yeah. Well, so I they don't speak English very well in Poland. Mm-hmm. I've been in all these Scandinavian countries because I thought when I come into Europe, I thought I'd be out of place. I thought, as an American, I'd feel like an outsider. But then you get to Europe and most of the places speak English. And you're like, I guess America is the center of the world, because everyone's just there learning English. So I felt like not an issue. And then I leave on my break to go to Poland and no one fucking knows English. I'm like mortified. I'm so like out of place and scared and alone,
Well, when you leave the big cities, even Quebec is like that. When you leave Montreal, there's some people that just don't speak English. They don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
And I started getting angry. I'm like, how dare they just only know Polish in Poland? But the crazy part is I tried to get a rental. I couldn't get a rental. So I had to go to the Warsaw train station. To get a train, and it was full of refugees. I was in the thick of it. I saw them all.
Holy shit. That's wild.
Yeah, I saw them all. You could tell which ones they were. I mean, they didn't look great, but they were, they look kind of homeless. And I was like, yeah, they are homeless.
Were they standing with Ukraine though? Did they have any stickers or flags that said they stood with Ukraine?
The refugees?
Yeah.
The refugees don't have to stand.
They
They're already
do.
in it. No,
we all have to stand. We're in it together.
They're running. They're not.
No, they have to stand the most
because they fled.
They're Ukrainian.
Yeah, I think I assume they all were standing. They were definitely standing in a long line to get soup. So I assume they're standing for Ukraine too. But it was intense. They're all over the place. And then I tried to get a train. The train never came. Poland is an incompetent fucking place. It's like all those stereotypes about them being dumb. I think those are correct. Because it's just complete incompetence. And they're taking all these Ukrainians, but I think the Polish people know that anyone's an upgrade from Polish people. I think they're just like, yeah, get anyone else because they're fucking idiots. The train was like an hour and 45 minutes. It didn't come.
Oh, geez.
Is that not insane?
I mean, it sounds a little bit like America also.
I feel like trains come on time in America.
Sometimes.
Like train, not subway, but like the trains.
I don't know. Amtrak can be pretty bad.
That's true.
Well, but I hear you. I'm just trying to clean up the fucking racial mess you just made. Hey, by the way, did you hear why the Polish guy got fired at the M&M factory?
No.
He kept throwing out all the W's.
Yeah, this shit's accurate.
That's gold.
It's great.
That is gold.
But so anyway, I go to get a train. So I look on, it's a 3-hour ride. The train, I look on Uber. There's an Uber ride for 3 hours to the little town for $150. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's a great deal. I mean, I'm sure it'll make that guy rich, but I'm like, I'll do it. But I've never done like Uber for 3 hours. I mean, that's
rough.
That's a road trip.
I'd want to sit in the trunk. I don't want to drive with you for 3 hours.
It was crazy. We like stopped for gas. We sightseed. It was like planes, trains, and automobiles. I ordered the Uber. It was this guy from fucking Georgia. He didn't speak any English.
So Georgia the country or Georgia the city?
Could have been either one, I guess, with English. No, Georgia the country. I just went in the Uber with him and I just hoped he was driving me to the right place. And we drove for he just kept on saying, let's go. That's the only words he knew. He said, let's go while driving.
Vamos in Georgian.
Yeah. And I was just in the back and he was chain smoking and FaceTiming with his son at one point. It was wild. And, but yeah, we drove 3 hours, a 3-hour Uber in a man who didn't know English.
That's like my worst night. I mean, not knowing English is a night. That's a plus.
That was actually pretty good because we didn't have to talk. It would have sucked to have to talk for 3 hours.
Yeah, that would be a nightmare. But what do you think of this idea? I have a film coming out. It's going to be big. It's going to be huge. Academy Awards, the whole thing.
Sure, of course.
I'm humiliated just talking about movies, shitting on movies. I got 2 ideas. One is we drop talk movies. And it's just Joe and Raanan talk. And we just talk about whatever. Or we only talk about movies that I love. So I can just be praising films. That way I'm not like fucking Robert Redford's a piece of shit. Meryl Streep stinks. And then my movie comes out.
Does anyone else talk shit or is it just us?
No, like there's no video of DiCaprio being like, Paul Newman blows, Cool Hand Luke stinks. You know what I mean?
Who talks shit, but he's like at the end, it's Brian Cox. He talks shit. His whole memoir is like Anthony Hopkins can suck my dick and Michael Caine is overrated. Like he'll just talk shit. But like
I know, but he's 114 years old.
He's 114. He's Scottish or something. He doesn't give a shit. But yeah,
I'm just starting. I mean, they're gonna bury me. By the way, tomorrow I have to go see Power of the Dog today because tomorrow I'm doing the Oscar episode of Bennington. They're like, hey, you love movies. We watch the podcast. It's the best podcast on earth. Raanan stinks, but you're number one.
Just no invite for me.
Well, you're in Poland or Georgia or
do they
Alabama.
know that?
I think so. Yeah, everyone knows.
Okay.
Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's hoping you pass away in the war. So, so they're like, you must be up to date. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I'll come in. I've seen everything. I'm looking. I've only seen 2 of the movie. I haven't seen any of this shit. I haven't seen Coda. I haven't seen Power of the Dog. I haven't seen Dune. I haven't seen the Serena Williams story.
I had the same thought. I'm looking at the Oscar Best Picture. I'm like, I can't believe I do a movie podcast. I'm like my mom. I'm like, I don't know any of the Oscar movies this year. I saw one of them. I like mispronounced it. I'm like, why are we doing a movie podcast? We are not film buffs.
No, we suck. We're not smart. I'm an idiot. I made a movie. It sucks. Everyone's going to hate it.
I saw a little of that. That's the deaf one. That's the deaf. They're deaf, but she sings. But she's not deaf.
Well, two of the cast members from my movie are in Coda.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Tony V and Cortland Jones.
Tony V's in Coda?
Yeah, he plays a bartender. I haven't seen the film, so I don't know. He's not like the star.
Well, like her parents are deaf and she's like singing. But it's not like an inspirational story because she's not deaf.
You said singing like Forrest Gump.
I'm just saying she doesn't have an obstacle. It's like if I was like a brilliant chess player, but I'm like, yeah, but my brother's mentally handicapped. So this is like really hard for me. It's like, you can't have difficulties via proxy. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the film, so I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably, I imagine there's not just a massive plot hole. I'm sure somehow they depict a struggle of some sort. I can't imagine they're just like, oh no,
your parents are deaf. How can you sing? But your parents are deaf.
Hey, we got to get to this movie. I literally texted you. I'm like, I got to keep it tight. I got a movie to catch.
All right, let's talk about the. We'll do it a Patreon. So we need to do a Patreon. We're gonna get sued for false advertising, but we'll do a Patreon about me being in Poland and the
Go and Raanan talk. That's the podcast.
Maybe that'll be better.
Because I'm going to be swinging with the dicks out there. I'm going to be with Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon in the threesome.
You'll be like, don't listen to that episode. Well, I feel like you hardly talk shit. I feel like I talk shit.
You talk more shit, but I talk a lot of shit. By the way, and we're still getting these comments like, do these guys like anything? I think if we did the math, we're praising more movies than we trash.
Of course, it's just people what they say. You know what I mean? I think you've talked. I think the only thing you got to worry about is running into Robert Redford.
I know, but other people, they have.
Know what a podcast is. He's 95.
But these people have like reverence for him. They'll be like, you trashed Bobby Red or whatever. Or they might be like, finally, somebody says it.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, man. I'm like, hey, Tarantino, just watch the first 5 minutes of the pod and then just skip the next 10 minutes where I say you should be murdered. Okay, all right,
let's get into it because this is the best movie.
You got notes.
It's insane that I'm looking through the Oscar noms. This movie got rooked.
Yeah.
This is the movie.
I agree.
This is the movie of the year, of the decade, possibly. We're only 2 years in.
It's a very powerful movie. I haven't seen King Richard. That got nominated for Best Picture, right?
I haven't seen Will King Richard,
but I'm going to assume this is better than Will Smith playing the
He's like, you got to make it. And he's crying. I get it. All right.
Well, I love the movie. I got to say right off the bat, I was not expecting what it was. It was called a rom-com. The Norwegian view of a rom-com is dark. Everything about them is dark, but a Norwegian rom-com ends in death and unrequited love and dying alone.
I tried to tell you, by the way. Remember we talked? I said all this. I was like, it's not a rom-com. And you're like, well, is it funny? It's got to be funny if it's a rom-com. And I'm like, it's not funny. There's no com.
There's some.
It's 3 jokes.
There's more com than rom.
Yeah, I suppose. But there's like 3 coms, 1 rom, and then just a whole lot of just pondering.
I didn't know I was, I don't want to get to the end, but like, it definitely became something I did not expect it to be. I mean, I will say this. It does start off in a somewhat lighthearted tone.
Yes.
And gets much heavier, which makes it much more upsetting. I always think the tonal change in a movie can be so effective, because it just ruins expectations. I've said that about Bone Tomahawk when it becomes a horror movie. That tonal rift is so effective. The tonal rift in this it is like, it's not like the most lighthearted thing ever, but the tonal rift to him like having cancer is just very intense. But before we get into this, yes, I mean, you talk a little about it. This is your favorite movie of the year. It's not my favorite Drive My Car, but it's up there.
No, this is better than Drive My Car. Get out of here with Drive My Car. You're trying to sound different. You just want to pick the less digestible film.
You're in love with a Norwegian movie. What's the difference? You're also a cunt. These are both foreign films.
No, but that movie's 4.5 hours long, and there's like, it's not as good. Shut up. This movie, you don't like that this movie's more accessible. It's more, there's no way you're identifying more with Drive My Car than this film.
I mean, Drive My Car, but you understand, like the same way, like I texted you, there's literally a scene where it's like, how many times can I watch Dog Day Afternoon? It was literally like a Joe monologue. I mean, it's crazy.
I've never identified with a character more ever in my life.
He took from you your deathbed speech. Like,
I know.
He took it
and The
from
Godfather, too. He references The Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon.
He's like, how long can I just care about watching the same old movies over and over again? I haven't been that. That was up there with me. I keep on referencing Bone Tomahawk, the whole bath conversation.
Right.
Bone Tomahawk, where he's talking about reading in the bath, which I was like, oh, it was like that just from my soul to yours, you know? But yeah, I mean, Drive My Car, but from Drive My Car for me, I love Vanya. I love Chekhov. So it was like, it was an accessible thing for me. I mean, like, you know, it involved my favorite shit. But anyway, talk a little bit.
There's nothing less accessible than I like this movie better because I love Russian playwrights. Shut up. Get out of here. My guy, he's talking about like listening to 90s rock and Dog Day Afternoon. I'm in there. It's right up my ass. You're like, well, if you don't know the top 5 Russian playwrights, you're just not going to get this Japanese film 4 hours long.
That guy is so you. He's like, he's rewatching the same movies, kind of, you know, obsessed with objects in a way, not realizing the impermanence of everything until his death. And also he has that whole cancel culture speech, which is I
know. I mean, I'm in love with this guy, with this character. You got to see this film. I mean, I was sobbing. I saw it in the theater with Sarah, sobbing. I'm sobbing in the movie theater. I couldn't but like uncontrollably cried for about 9 minutes straight. And then that monologue ends and it goes into like another monologue and then another one. It's just like 9 minutes. And and then I watched it alone. I had to stop it. I had to stop watching because I was by myself in the house. I was like, I can't handle this right now.
It's a lot. It's really intense. And it really brings up like, you know, it's not her fault that she breaks up with him. They're at different places in their life, but the movie makes you see the dire consequences of breaking up with someone, because she broke up with him and he basically died alone. And it's not her fault, but it just shows you, like, if she would have stayed with him, he would have had someone with him at his death. So it just shows you the precariousness of everything and relationships, and how, like, you know, like you can be dating someone, you want to leave, and then the next day they get hit by a bus and you fucked up their whole narrative. Like, so that's such an intense thing to put in this, because romance can sometimes seem so lighthearted and chaotic, like that. It really gets to an interesting point, which is that rom-coms, it's such a hilarious thing that there's all these movies called rom-coms when really there's nothing heavier and more depressing than relationships, because they're so intense and you're spending this fragile amount. We have a limited amount of time on this planet and we're choosing it to spend with one person, and then we choose not to, or we waste too much time with that one person. It's such an intense thing. And this movie gets to the heart of that, which is like, it's all like, there's so much wrapped up into a relationship and it's so heavy. It's so much the opposite of a rom-com, you know? It's
a complete opposite of a rom-com. I don't understand that label. Maybe it was like a marketing ploy. I don't get it. Or maybe that's the only way you can get Americans to watch a foreign film, is to be like, it's a rom-com.
But I like the tonal riff, which kind of, it made it more of an M. Night Shyamalan twist, where you're like, oh shit, I didn't see the death coming, you know?
I still don't think you're saying that right, and it's just shameful to compare this to an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
I'm just saying, but you're not.
Can I talk? You said this is your favorite movie. You talk. All of I've said so far is that I was sobbing. I haven't got into the film yet. Took over. First of all, the depiction of death. Nobody depicts death this well and this realistic in movies. Death in movies feels so dramatic and like fun. There's something fun about it. This guy said something I've said before. That's what struck me, is this idea when you hear artists, they go, he'll live on through his art. And I've never understood that. I never cared for that. I never identify with that. And then he says, I don't want to live on through my art. I want to live in my flat. And I was like, that is the greatest line ever put on screen. That's exactly right. It's only consoling for the people that are in the life. Like, we're like, oh my God, John Lennon's still alive, but he's not. He got shot in the face. He's dead. His life is over at 40. This guy, he's like, I want to live in my apartment fuck that shit. And that is such a beautiful depiction. And then even after that, you think, okay, now he's going to have this perspective as he's really going out. And then he's sitting in the car and he's like, everything sucks. It all sucks. This sucks. And that's never shown in film. That's why it's so funny to call it a rom-com, is a guy who's dying just going, this is terrible. I hate this.
Which is, I think, true. And we hide that. The fact that people die young and it's not some spiritual, like, it's just like, this really sucks. And then they die. And that is, to me, the most powerful part of the movie, which I do actually think Woody Allen is very much an influence in this movie.
Huge, yes.
I feel like there's a shot of her running that's just straight out of Manhattan. But that line, even though it's very powerful, it's, to me, I think I think it's a deliberate reference to a Woody Allen joke. Do you know the Woody Allen joke?
I don't want to care about dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens.
No.
Oh, I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to achieve. Yeah. Yes.
I don't want to achieve immortality in my art. I want to achieve it in my apartment. Right?
No, I think he says, I want to achieve it by not dying.
No. There's another line. I don't want to live on in my art. I think it's literally the line. I don't want to live on in my art. I want to live on in my apartment. I think that's literally, it's literally the line. Yeah.
I never heard that line. I know he has the quote, I don't want to live on through art, but I want to live on through not dying.
I actually was reminded of it because I think it was in that, you gave me that Woody Allen book.
Yes.
And I actually think that line was in it on one of the pages I saw the other day. So I actually think this movie's such a debt to Woody Allen. It took a Woody Allen one-liner.
Are you sure that's the line? Because I know for a fact in that book, there's a quote, I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve it through.
I know that one. And I know that.
So they have both of them in there?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, this guy's just ripping himself off then.
I don't want to live on in my. Yeah, I think that's.
This reminds me of the Seinfeld. What do you say when you see things?
What's that one? Oh, earlier.
That's when he goes, when George comes up with the idea to steal the limo. And he goes, see, some people see things as they are and say, no, wait, some people say, what do you say when you see things? That's the line.
Yeah.
You're not listening anyways, but
there's two. I don't want to live on in the hearts of my countrymen. I want to live on in my apartment. So that's, I guess it's different. No, it's a paragraph. What is it from? It says, I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve immortality through not dying.
That's
I don't want to live
exactly
on
what I said.
But it keeps on going. I don't want to live on in the hearts of my countrymen. I want to live on in my apartment.
Okay.
So it's got it, yeah.
I think countrymen. Was he at war?
But
or maybe that's from Love and Death.
I think that might be from.
That might be Love and Death.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get back to the goddamn movie.
Well, that's the most powerful part, and also the line right after. It's like, I want to live with you, and it's like. And it's such a powerful moment of him going, I just want to live with you. And it reminded me, like, I have a friend who's a doctor and she sees people die all the time. And she told me, like, one guy was really young and she had to tell him he was dying. And I was like, what was his reaction? He was like, he was just angry. He was really pissed off. He was telling me to go fuck myself. And I'm like, yeah, it's not always like, you don't always have a redemption. You don't have a redemption. You're just really mad. People just die mad.
Well, that's the first stage. Oh, that's the second stage. I thought. I think it's denial, then anger.
Yeah, but I think the reality is a lot of people stay at anger, which is, in this movie. Though he does, in a way, he beautifully has no anger towards her, and I think one of the most powerful things is he tells her she's a good person.
It's so powerful. I mean, it's so moving and so powerful, and that thing where he has such wisdom and clarity that he's like, you are my most important. I'm not your most important, but that's all right. And that happens. And he's like, you have a lot more life to live. And this idea, you never see someone sitting, and he's sitting outside and it's so beautiful at this picnic table in front of his hospital. And he says, I have no future. I can only look back. And it's like, it's the most powerful depiction of death I've ever seen or experienced on film. The idea of like, I have no future, which you usually hear as somebody who's like getting arrested or has like they're a failure. This guy's like, I literally don't have a future. Yeah. And also there's something touching too that he's like, does it hurt? And he's like, no, which is beautiful because it makes it all emotional and mental. He's not in pain. He's like, it's actually just fine. He's just standing outside and he even looks relatively normal. It's just the mental pain of like, I'm not going to exist anymore. I don't have a future.
Yes, in that moment. And then, of course, later there's the pain and that other extremely powerful line where I'm exhausted from pretending everything's okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And like I said, it's not what this is one then, you're not expecting you're not like sitting there going, oh, this is terms of endearment or beaches. You don't expect there to be this death in this movie because so many of these relationship movies don't deal with that. And the way it's even dealt with in this is so casual. Like the brother tells her. So it's like, it does make death seem like part of life. It's not elevated into this bigger fucking thing. It's part of like just normal life in this movie, which makes it so effective. And I mean, it is funny that they treat this guy. He's 40. I feel like the whole movie they treat him like he's 112. He's like, I don't want to date you. The age gap. I feel like the age gap was like 10 years, and he's like, it'd be weird.
No,
and
she's
then,
30 and he's 44. It's 14 years.
Yeah,
that's a rape sentence. we went right to the death. We got to talk more about the great depiction of the relationship, because there's also this beautiful thing that again is very Woody, where everything freezes and she, like you said, in Manhattan, and she runs and everything's frozen, and she plays out this whole relationship with this new guy, which again is an incredible depiction of leaving somebody for somebody else, where she has this whole beautiful fantasy with this guy and she's spending all this time with him and they go out for ice cream and they fuck and whatever. And then it cuts back to the present, that moment where you have to break up with this person.
Yes.
And he's just devastated and blindsided. And it's like, to get to that, you have to go through this. And there's no way around that. And it's so touching. And it's the best depiction I've ever seen of a breakup.
I mean, it is the best depiction of a breakup. It is perfect. Them hooking up is seamless. You don't even, it's just like, of course he's then going to eat her out.
And then he eats her up. But by the way, how are they doing that? It looks like he's genuinely eating. I got to move to Scandinavia and go on auditions, because the actors are just eating pussy there.
Yeah, no, I think that was no method, my friend. That was a real.
Wait, did I lose you? I lost all audio. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
All right, I think we're back. We just had insane technical difficulties.
Jesus Christ.
That was worse than death.
Yeah. So what were we talking about?
I don't know. Cancer, the breakup.
The breakup. Oh, the freezing everything. Oh, the eating out. The eating out.
Yeah, eating pussy. That's what we were talking about.
No, that
I feel like you just faked the thing just to jerk off.
For what? You just talking about it?
Yeah. Well, you see her tits quite a bit, by the way.
I know. She's so hot. I had jacked off 3 times that day before, so I was tapped out. But even then watching it, I was just like, I might go for a 4th time. But
tremendous performance by her.
She's amazing.
And
all the acting is incredible. The facial expressions. When her new boyfriend, when she tells him, are you going to serve coffee till you're 50? Which I guess in Norway, that's like a mean thing to say. In America, that's like a very reasonable question. But in Norway, they make a living wage. But his reaction when he's just like, that's really hurtful. Like the way they all cry in this movie is incredible.
The best piece of acting to me, or face acting, was when he's dying and he says, are you pregnant? And she emotionally just nods and doesn't know how to handle it. It is that like just crushed me.
There is some major facial expression complexity in this movie. That's just like so real. I mean, her the whole time, her face is like this whole universe in the movie. And like the way it subtly shifts in every moment is just like incredible. So yeah, let's start from the beginning. Honestly, we haven't talked. I mean, it starts out with her just changing from career to career.
Well, what's beautiful, the very opening shot I love is that pivotal moment. And it's a beautiful shot because she's sitting on the rooftop smoking in this dress. And it's like slowly pushing in. There's this something closing in on her, which we don't see that again until later when he has it. But for him, it's cancer.
Right.
She has this thing. She's in this moment. Do I want to be in this relationship? Am I happy? And it's this kind of pushing in of like something's happening. Something's coming. What's coming is she's going to leave him and meet this other guy in a second. For him, it's death.
For him, it's death. That's a good point. And she, she reminds me of so many people I know. Just that she is like that perfect archetype, that cute girl who just is a flake.
Let's be honest, you've never met anyone like this, but keep going.
She's a cute girl who's a flake. You know what I mean? We know so many people like this.
Sure.
She's basically Chloe Radcliffe, in every way possible. God, I really shit on Chloe during this podcast. I love Chloe, but
no, Chloe's great.
She's cute, but she's like a flake. And when you see her do all these different professions in the beginning, it's just such a great setup for her character, you know?
Well, yeah, and there's some comedy in there. It almost feels like Wes Anderson. It feels a little bit like Rushmore.
Yes. And it's very much like Jules and Jim, with the third person narration, which is obviously like the Wes Anderson's big influence. But it has a whimsical quality. And then she meets this cartoonist who's an interesting character, and they start having a relationship. And then it's great because the movie deals with not a definable problem. It deals with something I deal with in my life all the time, which is ambivalence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it actually explores there's just something not right about this relationship, but I can't put my finger on it. That's what I haven't seen before. Like usually in a relationship, you're like, it's very clear, you know, especially I know you love Woody Allen, his serious movies, but I think sometimes Hannah and her sister, those movies do put everyone in a box. You're emotionally unavailable. Need this. I'm an extrovert. And it kind of overtly explains the problem. But the problem in the relationship here is not overt.
Right.
And not really. I mean, it's up for interpretation. What's the issue?
Well, there's some jealousy there for sure.
He has a purpose, artistically fulfilled, and she's not.
Yes, which is quite clear. I mean, I'm saying this to defend Woody. I don't quite understand. I mean, it's presented like she's at this party, he's getting all this praise, and she wants to be creative and is not creative.
No, but if it was Hannah and her sister, they would say that to each other. He would be like, you're artistically fulfilled and I'm not. It would be a bunch of Bergman dialogue bullshit. But this does in a way
that's just obnoxious to take a moment out to just shit on the most nominated screenwriter of all time. I mean, just a brilliant screenwriter. It doesn't even make any sense, but okay, keep going.
So yes, there's that, but he is a great guy and he is very understanding.
Woody?
He's a great guy. He's very understanding. He's very, supportive in ways. You know, he doesn't really present much of he is successful, but he doesn't present much of a problem for her. Like there's not an obvious problem. I think for her, it's just.
He also wants kids. He wants to settle down and have children, and she doesn't.
Want that. Yes. I mean, I'm just saying it's real. It's multiple things. It's not one thing, and it's all kind of like. He is great, but she also kind of wants she wants to new, you know.
Okay, but I'm harping on this Woody thing. Do you have a criticism of him saying, why not have kids? We should have kids. That's a good age to have kids. He's saying it and she's saying, I don't want that. Is that bad? Is that negative that they have this dialogue just like in real life you do?
I mean, it's still in a way, it still feels more like a real conversation. It's not Max von Sydow going, I am an artist who keeps you alone on this island and you are my link to the world. You know, I mean, whatever. You can't admit that Hannah, her sister, has some goofy ass fucking.
No, you dialogue. Can't admit that it's great. It's you that can't admit. I'm in the majority. You have to admit. The majority
is often wrong.
I guess.
But anyway,
not in 1985, it wasn't.
But anyway, so she leaves him, and it is interesting watching it. Another thing is like the difference between Norway and America. A lot of differences play out in this movie. For instance, something you would not see in America is her genuinely insulted that her father hasn't read her essay on face fucking.
Right.
Which like they just don't have taboos the same way, I guess. But like right. she's like, Dad, have you not read my article about how I love soft dicks and just really going down on a guy? And he's like, oh, I couldn't get the link. And she's like, what kind of father are you? Like, it's just hilarious.
No, but that's a great depiction too. And it's such a perfect thing to pick of that. You know, he's just not available. And it's so touching. And then that her boyfriend tries to defend, and then later she's like, I've cut him off, and he's like, that's good, which it's it's just beautiful and so relatable and identifiable.
Oh, it's great. And him being all self-pitying and I can't find parking. And yeah, it's just that they perfectly capture that self-pitying narcissist, you know. Not all narcissists are the arrogant kind. A lot of narcissists are like the negative, like there's always a problem in my life. You know what I mean? And that's very much a more even common narcissist, you know?
And here's an old guy living that way who doesn't realize how close he is to death. And he's just kind of ignoring his daughter. And then later we're going to see face first or up close what it feels like to be like everything's about to end for me. It really gives you a tremendous amount of gratitude. And also the way I'm skipping back to the death scene again, but the way he talks about art and his consumption of art before the digital era that we're in now, and trading and collecting CDs and DVDs and whatever, VHS and books. And he's like, that's all I have now. And that's the value of life. It's such a beautiful thing as I sit and watch the movie surrounded by my movie posters and my books and my DVDs that I'm obsessed with and my photos. And he's like that longing for the past is a past that doesn't exist anymore. And that feeling, and it brought me back. And he's mentioning the record store that he used to go to and shop for movies and stuff. It brought me back to that time period so much more than anything else ever has in art. It was so touching. I had to stop and just go listen to some of the music I love the most and dance around and cry.
I know it is. It was for us. It was an old man's conversation. It was for us. I mean, we are that person who came from before the internet. And I remember buying the video cassettes, Godfather, and putting it on the shelf. And you love the way the movies look on the shelf and you can hold them. And she says the perfect line. She's like, you mean like books? Because like books are still, even though now even books are like on a Kindle for a lot of times. But and him talking about it and being nostalgic, but also admitting those things don't really matter. You know, there's kind of like this attempt to deny the impermanence of stuff, you know,
right?
To hold on to something literal. And it is a really powerful message there. Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to go back to the death in this movie because it is. And once again, I do think it's so effective because it's not something you think is going to happen, which is very much like life, where we're just kind of society kind of lives around this like denial of death. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly someone you know is terminal. And right. So the way this movie doesn't set it up, but just feels like a movie that has just about living and relationships. And then this happens so abruptly, perfectly captures the way it feels in life when death happens. It's never this obvious, like, oh yeah, we're all mortal. And of course it's going to happen. It's always a weird shock because we're all in such denial, you know?
The other, yes, agreed. The other amazing line that I identified with so much that is so touching is, and I had to write it down. If I regret this guy's dying. If I regret one thing, it's that I never managed to make you see how wonderful you are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so powerful and beautiful to have this one regret in your life. And then it's like because that happened, that's the foundation of so many relationships is I wish you could see you the way I see you.
Yes.
And vice versa.
I know. Very true. And it is such a powerful thing because the title of the movie is Worst Person in the World. And you're watching her in this movie and you don't think she's an awful person, but you think she's like most people. You know what I mean? She's, you know, has some fakeness, has some fear of commitment or some recklessness, you know? But when you're reminded that she isn't a horrible person, it's a really important message because especially for me, because I feel like her a lot, you know. I tend to run away from things. I would never crash a wedding, but I felt that, like, you know, that recklessness of throwing away the stuff you have in your life. And I feel like a bad person a lot. And to the reminder that you're not a bad person is such an important thing to be reminded of in life, you know, because you just go through life thinking you're an asshole.
Right.
You know, but it's also tough because the people who think they're good people are like monsters. So it's like anyone who's like, I'm a good person, you're like, that's like a horrible person. So you're like, I need to think I'm a bad person because that means I'm a good person. But you do like at least for me, I think I'm too much of a horrible person all the time. And it keeps you from being in shit, you know?
Yeah. Same with athleticism and art. You have to have an amount of like, oh no, I suck.
I know.
Good.
But you need also someone who's dying to remind you you're not a bad person.
The other great thing that this movie depicts so well, that's so beautiful, is like the great Joni Mitchell line is, surely you touched mine, parentheses, soul, because part of you pours out of me from these lines from time to time. Is that beautiful thing in a relationship where you carry over the last person into your new relationship.
Yes.
Where this guy, the big doof that she goes with, is like he's like, oh, I'm moving this from the paper recycling pile. He still has a lot of the qualities that his girlfriend that he hates.
Yes.
And he's carrying those around. There's also this beautiful moment where he's out hiking with her, which again is very Woody to kind of portray this relationship going wrong. And they're hiking and there's like this moose or yak or gack, whatever the fuck that thing is. And they're just missing it because they're just having this conversation and it's in the background. They're not seeing it, which is such a beautiful little moment. And that coming out and he sees this moment that should be beautiful of his girlfriend with, you know, face to face with the moose thing. And you could just see him being like, oh God, I hate this woman.
By the way, just as a PSA real quickly, you should never, ever go up to a moose. That's like the most dangerous thing. More people are killed by moose than like any other animal in America.
Is it a moose or a reindeer?
I think it's a moose.
I have no idea. I don't know anything. That's why I like to live in the city. But now I'm terrified of the city too, but that's a whole other topic.
I think it's a moose. And then when you said it's a reindeer, I'm like, wait, are those different? But it's very,
I think it's a reindeer.
No, maybe it's a reindeer. Well, if it's not a moose, maybe you're allowed to go up to a reindeer. I mean, obviously Santa goes up to it. It's fine. But like,
and there's reindeer games.
So yeah, I mean that part's very Woody Allen. It's very Wes Anderson too. When it cuts to her becoming an environmentalist, it just feels like such a Royal Tenenbaums montage.
Extremely, yeah. It's very Wes. There's a lot of Wes Anderson. There's a lot of Woody Allen. This even feels a little bit like La La Land at times, which I just rewatched and I love that movie as well. Very similar to that. The shot of her, the frozen when it's all frozen, she's running and it's like purple at dusk.
Yeah,
is so beautiful. Like she's so beautiful. The sky is so beautiful. I mean, this is just a beautiful film. It's just everything I want in a movie. It's the kind of movie I want to watch. It's the kind of movie I want to make. It's just masterful.
And it's beautiful without being sentimental, which is a really nice thing to do. It's beautiful while being extremely dark and realistic at times. I will say another thing that's very different between Norway and America is, even though it's in the fantasy, when she goes and sees he's a barista, in America, that would be the moment where she walks right back out the door.
Right.
Because he's like a fucking, but like in Norway, everyone has a living wage. So like you can be like just a barista. But that moment where she just goes in and it's like this romantic moment and he's just a fucking coffee barista at like a Starbucks. In America, that'd be like, all right, never mind. I'm going to go back to the very successful comic book artist, you know?
Well, and also he would be hot. And he's like a big doof.
That's the other thing that's interesting about him is that he's a doof, but the attraction of something new is so strong. It's so strong. And they do have that, like first of all, she randomly crashes a wedding. And then they have, the hottest part of the movie when they edge like no one's edged before, which is, oh my God, woo. I'm always been a fan of edging. I think it's way better than sex. And that whole experience is amazing. And also her farting as she pisses. It's just like great.
It's great. And I love too. And again, in American films, that would have been quick. Whoa, he sees him and he says something charming and then they kiss. It's long. It's played out. Yes. It's like a 12-minute scene of they do this and they do that. And they're in different places to show this is going on over the course of time, which is one of my pet peeves in movies is when people just fall in love after a night or whatever, like Titanic, they're like, I'm going to die with you. I'll remember you forever. And I'm like, they've like hung out twice. Who gives a shit? This really showed this long thing, even though it's one night, it showed, this movie just depicted everything so beautifully and so much better than in most films.
Yes. And it also like shows you how much of life is like they don't actually cheat. I actually thought this movie about someone cheating. They don't technically cheat. But it's what so many people do, which is just basically cheating.
Well, it's like an emotional affair.
It's an emotional affair, and it's basically cheating. You're just kind of like technically not, but it's what a lot of people do. You have the emotional thing, and then you break up right before you hook up with them. But it's but that also amazing to see when she's in the bookstore and you see him, and then you realize that woman is his wife. Is such an incredible moment.
It's great, and the cinematography is great too. There's these really bright, beautiful moments there. It's like popping and bright and clear, and then it contrasts with this real darkness, which of course is the movie in itself. It's just so well done.
It reminds me of a lot of Norwegian art, which is like beautiful and really depressing at the same time. And like, the way the movie works, it has captures these little moments. It's almost like just kind of seeing, like you have the moment where she's on Instagram and she's jealous in that one moment. Like the movie kind of captures these little exchanges and then kind of moves on to a next thing. They're like vignettes,
I don't have enough evidence to properly call you out for being familiar with Russian playwrights and Norwegian art, but I just suspect something's amiss.
No, I love I'm a big fan of Norwegian literature. But I am.
I got to wrap up soon. I got a thing. We had a 20-minute delay.
Ibsen, Strindberg.
Strindberg. Me too. Simonson, Klosterback, Come on My Back. Bethany, Come on My Back. Great painter from northern Norway.
I'm a big fan of Norwegian literature, and of course, the Scream painting, Munch. Great.
Of course, Munch, my box.
The Scream.
Scream! I've seen that. I've been there.
Yeah, it's great.
In Oslo,
right?
I've seen it live.
Yeah.
I saw that painting. I've seen Mona Lisa. I've seen more art than you. You've seen it in books.
Yeah, well, I've seen that painting. I saw it just in Norway. I saw it too. I've seen everything you've seen 2 years later.
No, that's not true. It's been 5 years.
Painting just like fucking. He just nails anxiety.
Did you go to the Louvre?
No, it's too crowded.
All right. Well, I went there.
Well, everyone says you go in and then you have to like push like 50 Japanese people away to see Mona Lisa's like fucking. It's like a postcard on the wall. So it's like
Did you know there's more square footage in the Louvre than my hometown?
Really?
Yeah.
That's I guess I don't really know your hometown. So
well, it's small, but no matter what the town is, it's a museum. A museum in town, you can see one's a museum and one's a town.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not like I grew up in fucking, Wyoming. It's like a Massachusetts, dense town.
So in the Louvre is bigger?
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So
I'm saying the museum is huge. That's the point. It's a massive museum.
Could you walk through your whole town in a day?
I guess so. I mean, my town is like 4 square miles. Maybe this is wrong. Could the museum be? It's the second largest museum in the world, but I think there's I
feel like you become your bit where the guy's like the airport's bigger.
I know that's what I'm thinking about. I think I might be right, but I think it's a big mall museum.
Who's doing this trivia? Who knows about the Louvre in your fucking?
I read it myself.
Boston
I was there.
Town.
I'm gonna look it up. I gotta run though. I'm gonna miss the movie. I got Bennington tomorrow. I gotta do this.
All right, fine. I gotta go too. I'm about to perform in an arena in 20 minutes.
Oh my God, you're better than me. That's crazy. All right, let's go. What's the plugs? No one listens to the plugs anyways.
There's so much other shit I want to say about the movie. But
I know. We'll do part 2. I gotta go. We had a half an hour delay. You were late coming on. You were late coming on, and you had technical difficulties.
We're gonna do part 2 on this because we're not done with this. You know what I mean? Maybe
we'll do part 2 of a Norwegian film that nobody saw.
We're just getting it down till we have only 5.
The next episode, we gotta do, End Games or Spider Dick. We gotta do something that people have seen.
We'll do the Age of Ultra, whatever. Ultra, Well, we did the Batman last time. We're, Batman, the Norwegian Batman.
By the way,
all right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. What were you saying?
I don't know. Go. Siobhan had the funniest point that I wish we had is that Batman's like, I'm vengeance. Like he's going by vengeance, but you're like, but you're dressed like a bat. Like he has the bat signal on his chest. He has bat ears. He has a cape, and he's like, "I'm vengeance." And you're like, But we're using a bat signal.
I never see this funny Chavot around me. It's like I walk away and he puts on the mask from Jim Carrey. He becomes like a goofy guy.
It's hilarious.
That's amazing. That's
so funny. On Vengeance. No, you're not. You're Batman. What are you
Why
talking
dressed
about?
as a bat? Dressed as like fucking Vengeance. Yeah.
Why isn't there a V?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Seems to go ignore the bad part. Yeah, that's hilarious. That movie sucks. But yeah, I mean, I got, I'm gonna be in Boston April 1st and 2nd at Hideout. And then I'm at Zanies in Chicago, April like 7th through 9th.
Wait, so you're home soon? You're coming home soon?
I'm coming home in 6 days.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm
and then immediately leaving for Boston?
Yeah, well, I got to run I've been doing fucking 4 minutes in front of Louis 4 hours every night. I haven't worked on my fucking hour, I'm
all right, I gotta go. Plug.
All right. So anyway, Chicago's 80s, Rosemont for one of the days. And then the other day I'm going to be in downtown's 80s. But most importantly, my special's coming up. I asked Liz what ticket numbers are. I think she blocked my number. I have no idea, but like fucking get a ticket. It's on Instagram, on my bio, Raanan Comedy. Please reserve a ticket. I mean, everyone who hears this, who lives in New York, ever deserves a ticket. All right, where are you going to be?
I got to go. Just check out my website, comedianjoelist.com. My special comes out April 29th. Subscribe to my YouTube right now. Please subscribe. April 29th.
Do it.
The special comes out. I got to run. Okay, thank you. This was great.
We'll post it soon. Cut. All right.